Hello, everyone. Welcome to Worlds Apart, Words Together, where best friends share laughter, stories, and an unbreakable bond. And I'm here with my co host, Leah.
Hello, and welcome to this week's episode where we are going to dive into probably one of the most common mental health topic, or one of the most common ones, of comparing yourself to others. As we all know, social media and just different stigmatisms with certain things, especially for females, but that is not to say that males do not also do this, because they do. Just comparing ourselves to others and how that is going to affect us personally, how we think about ourselves, how we think about others, and then we're going to get into some ways to embrace your personal journey and be okay with who you are and your own journey that you're on.
Yeah, that is very well said. And like Leah said, it is a very important topic. And um, we do see it mostly, I think, with like teenage girls who are trying to figure themselves out. But as Leah said, it doesn't mean that men or older women don't do the same things because everybody is caught into comparing themselves to somebody else at some point. So,
For sure. And I think as much as it started or potentially started being talked about in the female population due to, waist size or hair color or hair type or who's skinny and what is considered sexy or hot and all this and what's considered attractive and all this stuff, I think the male population also suffers from this sort of like thinking as well. And I just don't think it's talked about as much as the female
yeah.
population. But I mean, it kind of goes across to everyone, because the use of social media, especially, really, I think, brought that to the attention of, or brought that into how we think. Because before social media, we didn't really have as much access to other people's lives and what they looked like and what they did and all this kind of stuff. And now we do. And I think that kind of definitely was a tipping point for this kind of thinking behavior.
For sure, because it provided us with insight into what somebody else of my age is doing better than I'm doing. It's like, oh, she's got all these degrees and she's got all this job lined up. Even a little personal anecdote to start, Michael, as all of our listeners by now probably know him by name, um, we were building his resume and I gave my resume or CV as an example, and he was like, "But look at all these things. Like, you got so many more jobs, you got so many more things to put on there, and mine just looks like ass." And I told him, like, this is what you've done in your college career, and you being a college athlete also shows determination and discipline. And, it's not fair for you to try to compare yourself to me, who's gone into a very different path in their lives. So
Yeah,
that's a little
yeah,
personal story to start off.
yeah, and it's difficult to kind of retrain how you think about um, what is the expectation, what is considered falling behind, anything like that, when the idea of comparing yourself to others is so prevalent in today's society. Like, yeah, it probably started with the more visual side, but as you just kind of gave an example, it comes down to, oh, well, my resume looks different than yours, or my CV looks different than yours, or, oh, I'm or like, oh, like I'm 25, I'm still in school, and this person's 25 and is already like a millionaire or something like that. Like every person's
Yeah.
background is different and every person's life journey is different, and comparing yourself to another person, like you don't come from the same background, perhaps you didn't have the same kind of luxuries as that person did, or you didn't have the same door opened as that other person did, and vice versa. um
Yeah.
it's just something like you need to be conscious of when you start to go down that rabbit hole of, oh, I'm not as good as that other person, because you guys are like, everyone's different and everyone's gone through their own journey.
Which is why this is such an important topic to talk about. And I think there is not enough about this that people really speak out about it because everybody knows people are comparing themselves to others, but nobody, at least in my close circle or in my people that I follow on social media, really talks about it. Um, so what you just mentioned aligns very well with one of the first things um, we wanted to talk about today as a downside of comparing yourself to people around you or people that you follow, and that is the decreasing of self esteem. And what we mean by that is when you compare yourself to others, either people in your own family or people that you follow on social media, you're often focusing on their strengths and whatever they're capable of or have done, and how you might not have those same strengths. And it's not you looking at, oh, this is what I have done instead. It's like, oh, but I haven't done that. So you're very one sided oftentimes. And this can diminish kind of how you're feeling like your self worth, or it can lead to feelings of inadequacy. And that is something we want to prevent today. Um, but those are things that can happen from that.
Yeah, and definitely one thing to point out, and this is how I view it because I have gone down this rabbit trail many times. It's that you are normally when you start going down this rabbit hole, you're comparing your lowest to someone else's highest, because you're seeing all the social media or in conversation, people are going to tend to tell and show their highest or what they view as, a good point in their life or something like that. And then you're seeing that when you're potentially at your lowest, or you're struggling, or you're trying to overcome something, and that puts that deficit at even a larger gap. And that's just something to keep in mind, especially when you're scrolling social media, or you're listening to whatever it might be, a news article or a YouTube video, a vlog, anything like that. More times than not, that person is showing their best, or a high,
Yes.
or something that they're proud of. And you can't take that and watch that and hear that and see that when you are potentially struggling or something, because that will just continuously decrease that self-esteem. It pushes you down further than what you really need, because ultimately, if you were to compare your high or your accomplishment or something you're proud of with, you wouldn't really notice as much, or if any, of that kind of deficit.
Yeah, and what you're just sketching is kind of like a false reality. People, as you mentioned, on social media platforms, more times than not, they want to show the world all that's good and all that's perfect. They're not gonna usually post their downsides or something that's going wrong for them. I have to say, though, more often on social media, I see people trying to show the reality of what's really going on, but still the images that you're comparing yourself to are those that are the most perfect. And this creates a false reality um, that is not really someone's day-to-day life. Most people, they have a job, they need to work, they come home from work and they do it again the next morning. You know, although we like to believe that we can just take our laptop and go anywhere and do remote work, like that's just not how the reality is, unfortunately. Like I wish it was, but it isn't. And that could be a very misleading kind of thing for yourself to be like, oh, but this is how my life should be. And it isn't.
Yeah, I think that's a really good thing to point out, especially with Instagram and TikTok and all that stuff and all those social media platforms. And there's others that the flair of influencing is huge. It's a big fad right now. And, people say, oh, well, I make multi millions or whatever doing influencing and I can travel wherever and I get all this stuff and all these, like, sponsorship type things or whatever it might be, brand sponsorships, like whatever it might be. But in reality, that is such a small niche to the rest of normal people. Like, normal people have jobs that they go
Average.
into. Yeah, like the whole micro niche of influencing is, it seems way bigger than what it is because of how we're exposed to it, and that's really huge to keep in mind, especially as we're talking about the creation of the false reality, because that's normally what we're seeing most often. That's what we're comparing ourselves to. And therefore, that's how we get into this cycle of, that's how I should be, or that's the life I should have, or whatever it might be. And we kind of just sit there in this cycle of, not being okay with our own journey.
Yeah. And it's funny that you mentioned that, and this kind of made me think of something I read, and it was that the Met Gala, um, the celebrities who were invited, they said they wouldn't come if influencers were invited because they felt, I think it was the Met Gala, I'm not sure, could have been something else. But they felt like, influencing is not a real job. Actors, they've busted their asses to get to where they are. Um, Now, this is, I think, a whole nother debate whether influencing can be seen as a job or not. But I do think influencing in itself isn't a stable job for sure.
Well, it's
You
definitely
don't
not
build,
stable
go ahead.
because not like you're relying on brands to reach out to you or to keep sending you things or whatever. Like, 1 month you can have this massive income, the next month you not even get half of it. So it's
Yeah,
not really a day to day, month to month, you know what you're getting. It's highly unstable, and it's not something that, if you're looking to build a career or a, a stable income for a family, or a stable income just in general for when you're older, like, influencing is not all the glam and glory that you perceive on a 30-second to 10-minute screen video.
not at all. And like we try to have a somewhat active social media presence to kind of let people know about this podcast and about this blog. And I'm not shitting you, it's hard. It's difficult, and I'm pretty sure people who post those videos and do all this editing, like it's a lot of work, but it's very different than putting your life on the line as a, I don't know, whatever job you're doing.
Yeah, and the other side of that is, if you're someone who's trying to get into, well, just a little side note, so I won't take long, but if you're someone who's trying to get into like the social media side of whatever it might be, entrepreneurship, influencing, whatever it is, you need to realize, because Mar and I knew this going into our podcast and our blog, most of these influencers or most of these podcasters and blog writers, they have a whole team behind them editing and writing scripts and cutting and pasting and all of this, and saying what reels they need to be putting out and what content works on what days and what hours and all this stuff. You have to realize they are not doing it by themselves. Like Mart and I, we knew that when we started this, and that's one of the reasons why we have always said we're going to keep it real. When we're busy, we're busy, but we're going to do our best to get what we believe out there because it's something that's important to us, and the topics that we bring to you guys are very important to us. But ours is nowhere near professional, and we're not a influencing or in trying to take the stage as an influencer. We're just trying to raise awareness, and you have to realize that too as you're scrolling through social media and going down a rabbit hole or going into a cycle. Like these people, the fad right now is, yeah, of course they're going to try to show the downs or the reality of things, because that's kind of like the social media fad right now. But their true reality is not even reality. And it's just something that, you just got to be aware of as you talk to yourself, or whatever script you're telling yourself as you're reading, watching, scrolling, whatever,
Yeah.
through your social media or whatever it might be.
And I think that's a really good introduction into kind of one of our latter points into the downsides of comparing yourself to others is that it kind of prohibits you from your own personal growth. You being so focused on others and what they're doing in their lives and what they're achieving or how they're looking or how they can be in the gym 2 to 3 hours a day while you're trying to get a job and whatnot. It can distract you from your own goals and also your own progress. And you might also even start to pursue what others believe and value instead of what truly matters to you. So my advice and Leah's advice for that is to make sure to stay true to yourself and to do whatever it is that makes you as a person feel happy and make you feel some sort of fulfillment.
Yeah, and when you get into these cycles, as we've talked a lot just previous, that comparison does stunt the personal growth that you could be achieving, because you either think that a variety of things. For example, you could think that maybe your interests aren't, hip enough, or in the modern times, or maybe you're something that you really enjoy is kind of outside the box, and you're afraid of what other people might think or say, or your journey will be a little bit harder, but it's something that you really enjoy and you're passionate about. It's just important to realize that, again, comparing yourself to others is not necessary. You need to compare yourself really to who you want to be, which is hard because maybe you don't know exactly what you want to be, but that that understanding of, this is my passion, this is what speaks to me, this is what fulfills me, understanding all of that, so when you do catch yourself going down a rabbit hole or anything like that, you can say, okay, like, this is what the algorithm is telling me, but this is not that. That's not truly me, and stay kind of like, just take that time and catch yourself to reevaluate and be like, okay, I know that that's an algorithm, but this is, maybe something I can do, even if it's super small, to put me back in the right direction of my personal growth journey.
Yes. And to kind of add, I think, to that is we've talked a lot about how we can enhance that personal growth or how we can start that personal growth. And one of the things that we've continued to mention is have some goals for yourself, something that you want to work towards. And it could be long term goals, it could be short term goals, it could even be weekly goals, doesn't matter. But what is important is to be able to stay true to yourself and what it is that you want out of this life. It's important to celebrate those little wins. Like I achieved this, I'm going to enjoy this moment, I'm going to celebrate this. I have a perfect example for that. So last week I got to do a exam again that I failed, and I got notified on Tuesday that I could take the exam on Wednesday. And I went in, I did it, studied all evening trying to get ready. And then I told my family, if I pass this exam, I'm gonna go buy a bottle of champagne to celebrate. And so yesterday, I heard my grade and I passed it. So my mom was writing down a grocery list and she was like, "Do you need anything else?" I was like, "Yes, a bottle of champagne." And she was like, "What do you mean?" I was like, "You know what I mean." She was like, "No way." I was like, "Yes." So we were super happy because I passed the class, but it was something, a little goal that I had for myself, and I achieved it. We celebrated, and now we're on to the next goal.
Yeah, I think it's huge to celebrate even the small wins. Obviously, like doesn't have to be something big like that, but it could just be like a little positive pep talk that you did something or something
Yeah,
super small like that, or
whatever fits into your lifestyle at that moment.
exactly, exactly. But I think in today's world, we get so wrapped up on the end goal. Like, what is the peak? What is what is the top? Where's the top for me, or where's the top should be for me? And if we fall short of that, or if it's taking longer to get there, or whatever it might be, we forget or we lose that living in the moment kind of lifestyle where you can say, okay, well, I'm not at that peak or that top that that's my end goal, but I've already hit five small goals that's on my way to that. And
Yeah,
we just push that to the side of like, well, it just has to be done. Well, yes, it has to be done, but also that's steps towards your main goal, and it's good to celebrate. And like I said, it could be something like buying your favorite dessert or champagne or just a little pep talk or something that reinforces that positivity that you are going in the right direction in your own journey.
I think I have a good analogy for that. Um, I don't think you don't play chess, do you?
No, but I know how
No.
to play chess. I just don't like
Yeah. So oftentimes when I play with Michael, he always tries to get me checkmate in like 3 turns. And that's the same, like you sometimes try to get to that main goal in only 3 steps. But sometimes it is better to take a few steps in between in chess to be able to checkmate in a better way. Um, and the same is for life. Sometimes it's okay to take smaller steps towards that end goal to eventually set yourself up for something better. So,
Yeah, and again, it don't over simplify what your the meaning of your life or your journey, because it's not you have one goal, it's to get to this place. Every
no,
day you can have little achievements that you can celebrate, and like it could just be like you give yourself a high five, or you just chuckle, smile to yourself and be like, yeah, I did that. Or, like I said, it doesn't have to cost money, it doesn't have to be a big thing, but understanding the uniqueness of your journey and that every stepping stone and every little goal matters will help you live more in the moment and live life, not just let life pass you by as you work towards this one big thing that you may or may never reach.
Yes, and I think that accounts also for, when we're talking about the comparison to others, like people who post these big achievements on social media also have taken many steps to get there, probably. But they don't post those small steps because they don't matter as much to the public than the big steps. So you got to remember that everyone who's doing something great has taken smaller steps to get there. And that is why I also think, and that is one of the points to kind of embracing your own personal journey, is to try to limit social media exposure. Um, as much as it is addicting, it can also set you up for maybe that negative influence that you get from it. And some people are more affected by it than others. But if you know from yourself, like, hey, I'm really feeling more down or negative about myself when I do see these pictures or these posts or these videos, take a break. And or make sure to unfollow those pages that make you feel bad and follow pages that make you feel better or that help you in your own personal journey. If you have the goal to start this whole food diet, make sure to follow pages that show you exactly how to do that. So you can create that own feed that is personalized to you, that is going to help you. Because social media doesn't have to be a negative thing only.
Yeah, for sure. I think there is some positive that comes from social media algorithm, and like you mentioned, like go through the social media detox, like once every 6 months, once a year, whatever you need for whatever season of life you're in, because you can block or unfollow accounts that don't suit that season of life that you're in, and you won't be exposed to that type of content anymore. And as you follow or like more social media posts or pages that help you or challenge you or just are more in line with where you're at, the algorithm will show you more of that and less of the
Yeah,
things that are causing that negativity. So in a way,
totally.
you can build that social media outlet that you have, that we all spend hours upon hours a day doing, even though we probably shouldn't for brain health, but to at least have it a little bit more positive than every
Or
time you
educational.
yes, or educational, instead of every time you sit down just it showing you things that you're not that won't suit you or that's sending you down these more negative cycles
Yeah.
and mindset. It's very personalizable now, and I think a lot of people know that the algorithm is out there and like all this stuff, but they aren't quite sure how it works. And I think that's very important to understand. It's like, no, you can set the boundaries of your algorithm by following and unfollowing and blocking and liking certain pages and people and posts or whatever that,
Yeah.
you know, give it the boundaries, give it the yeah, I guess the boundaries that it can work through and filter that information. Like if you see all these personal training influences or whatever, who these women that have like six pack abs and all this stuff, or these bodybuilders, and if you're not like, they're getting down to like 8%, 6% body fat. That's not normal for a female. It's not healthy for a female. And if
No,
you're seeing something like that and you're just starting your personal, like for example, personal health journey, workout journey, seeing that is probably not going to help you, because you're going to look in the mirror and compare your body to that, which is not even natural. So, you can perhaps find more holistic nutritionists or holistic personal trainers, or something more suitable for where you're starting, and that's going to keep you motivated, because you can say, look, like they went from 250 pounds and now they're 190 and they're celebrating, or they went from 250 to 210 and they're celebrating. I mean, they don't have six packs and they're not rocking extra small bikinis, but like they're celebrating that, and you can see that difference, and you can take their positivity and build off of that for yourself. So it's just kind of an example of like, don't fall into that kind of negative trap, because you might, oh no, I need to see that. Well, chances are maybe the first week you're like, oh yeah, it's motivating, and then you're going to start comparing because you're not seeing
yeah,
results as fast as you think you should. So just keep that in mind.
I totally agree with that.
And I think that also kind of feeds into one of our other points, that building that supportive community
Yeah,
around yourself and surrounding people, whether it's physical people or the algorithm social media side, but
yeah.
surround yourself by things and by people who are going to help you stay focused, or who are going to challenge you and push you and not bring you down and not make you fall into this comparison cycle.
I do think though having that community in person or as
Mm.
people is going to be so much more powerful than having that community online. Because I'm seeing what a supportive community or supportive people in your life can do to a person, against when people are kind of against what you're doing. Um, and it brings you down so much when you have people that are constantly questioning every move you're making or telling you that you're doing it wrong. Whereas on the other side, if you have people that are proud of you regardless of what you do, or are just, honest with you, saying like, "Hey, I saw you did this. Have you thought about it? Like, is that a smart move? Like, what is your reasoning behind it?" Instead of just putting you down and being like, "No, you're doing it absolutely wrong." Because whatever works for you might not work for them. And that is something we continue to press as well during our episodes is everybody is different. And I listened to a very good podcast episode today, um, a mother sharing her experience with her children that have autism. And she was saying that sometimes she has parents coming up to her and being like, "No, you're doing it all wrong." And she's like, "Well, they're not your kids. They're my kids. For us, this works." Um, and if you ever get criticized like that, keep in mind you're doing things the way that you're doing them because they're working for you. If you have people in your corner or surrounding you that genuinely support you, they will notice whenever something's not working for you and they will tell you in a polite manner.
Yeah, in a very constructive way.
Yes. And some people might be more constructive than others. That's just how they are. But they will find a way to let you know, like, "Hey, I don't think this is working for you." But the other way around, too, it's like, "I saw this is happening. Great. I'm loving this for you. Keep it up."
Yeah, 100%. It's good to have people in your corner and around surrounding you that can be real with you, and not real in a mean way, but real with you in regards to, as Marit was just saying, like if they notice something from the outside, because a lot of times people from the outside notice or can notice something quicker or sooner than you yourself, who's right in the middle of it, and they can point out
Yeah.
something that may not. They're concerned. They're like, this is not seem like you, this doesn't seem, whatever it might be, whatever the situation might be, but there is a level of relationship build, which goes way back to a different episode that we uh recorded about relationships. But there is a level of relationship there that you can build, um, and that allows that trust to be there for those close people to be like, hey, like what's going on, and have a very constructive
Yeah.
conversation that is not just saying, oh, well, why did you do this? Like, this is all bad. Like, you've gone downhill, or like all these negative comments. They can be like, hey, we've noticed this. Like, do you, are you aware? Like, anything like that that's more of that real, like, we need to have a serious conversation, but like, we're doing this because we want to help, or we want to bring this to
Yeah.
your awareness if you don't know. And the same thing goes for the positive, and it's not just all the negative, but I think it's harder to accept and to be the one giving that real conversation when it revolves around that negative, because you can always have people go,
Yeah.
oh, that's so great, or that's amazing, and like be kind of like that fake.
But I
um
do, if I may interrupt, I do think it is a lot easier for people to point out what they think you're doing wrong than what they think you're doing good. Like I don't think I've heard you're doing a good job more than I think this could be different. Like I
well,
think
yeah,
I've heard the
because
negative way more.
oh yeah, for sure. Because everyone, it's, I think it's easier to see the negative. And I'm not by any means saying like you should only focus on the negative, because um, obviously you need to have that positive reinforcement, even if you
Yeah.
are like, even if it's something that's positive. I'm just saying I think it's really hard, and it's much harder to surround yourself self with real people who care, who are willing
Yeah.
to have and intervene in such ways that are constructive. Because like you said, you
Yeah.
always hear people point out the negative, and they're just going to say, well, that's just wrong, or that's bad, or word, like the,
Yeah.
you know, whatever they feel like saying at the
Yeah.
time. Because I do think you hear that, and then you hear the ultra positive that's borderline, if not fully fake. And I think it's
Yeah.
that you have those two extremes, and I think it's very difficult to a find people and b surround yourself with people who are willing to just be 100% real, whether in the negative or in the positive.
Yes. Um, for people who are interested more in and who are just joining us or whatever, um, we have done a full episode, like an hour-long episode on adult relationships where we go way more into depth about what we just kind of touched on. And that would be episode 25. So, and it's called Eight Tips on Maintaining Adult Relationships. So, if you're more interested in that side of things, go back and give that one a listen. Because we go way more into depth in that too.
100%. 100%.
But I do think like the things that we touched on today kind of, you know, summarize some things that are hurting you when you compare yourself to others, but also definitely things to try to protect you from that comparison. And yeah, so I kind of lost my thought there. But I think what we talked about sums it up pretty nicely. And of course, there's way more that goes into this topic, but overall, these are just little things that we ourselves have noticed when we compare ourselves to others or when we see others compare themselves, but also things to remind you that you're you, you have your own personal journey, and you got to celebrate your life, nobody else's.
Yeah. And as always, we are one message away. So if you need any kind of support or you just want to talk things through, or if you want to hear more on a topic, feel free to
Yeah,
message us and we will always take any of that under advisement. We'd love to help you guys. Like I said earlier, we did this to bring like awareness to things that matter to us. So if you're ever struggling or just want to talk, like we are always here. We're a message away.
yeah,
And like I said, we're always interested in hearing what you guys want to hear. So just reach out to us.
yeah, yep.
And with that, we want to thank you for joining us as we offer a glimpse into the world of true friendship, where even though worlds may seem apart, the connections remain strong.
Thank you guys.